Hi, Roz.
Hi, Jackie Sue,
Welcome back.
to another episode of
We forgive you.
a podcast all about
Self-care through celebrity.
Jackson. You are looking a little different. I guess you probably sound more fun to the viewers. I'm looking at you. I'm viewing you.
Do I sound sexier or more playful, more fun?
You sound like you've got some blonde ambition. You could be on Smash.
Oh my God, I could. I'm a bombshell now.
That's what it was. Jesus, it was like what? I thought the play was called Blonde Ambition.
That would be a good title for it. It was bombshell. I, like every gay man in his mid to late 20s, very late 20s, literal days left.
About a week or so.
About a week or so. Dyed my hair blonde. I'm bleached round one. I have to go again this weekend to do another lift and tone.
Wait, did you cut your hair too?
No.
Oh, it looks like, that's so wild. It actually looks shorter, or just maybe did some fall out when you were bleaching it?
Probably, honestly. My scalp has spent all day yesterday, my entire scalp just shedded because I guess it was so irritated from the bleach. It's I've dealt with, winter seasonal dandruff since middle school, and this was something else. I was oh, my entire scalp is leaving my body. Okay.
So how have you been handling it? Because I know for work you have a lot of Zooms. Because you didn't seem like you're ready to debut it yet.
No, so I have been leaving my camera off more often, especially in mixed company. So when I'm not with my immediate team, because I don't want to form it as a blonde and me as the blonde that I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want someone to look at it and be oh, you don't know what you're doing, because
you don't want to be Katie Maloney season 2.
Yeah.
Blonde.
Right. Well, and okay, so a friend of the pod, Ian, I was texting him about the fact that I was going blonde, and then I sent him progress photos. And after the first round of bleaching and toning, after I told him that it was going to take 2 rounds to get to the color I wanted, he was oh, it's too brassy. You need to use and then he was researching it and was you need to get a purple shampoo. I was I have purple shampoo. I was I have purple conditioner. I did tone it. I was I already told you this is a multi-step process. And then he texted me every day this week until I told him that there would be no updates until this week. And he's so have you toned it again? Have you toned it again? I was girl.
I told you.
Also, I have to let my scalp and hair heal. I need to condition it. I need to let this shedding, scabbing, whatever process from getting so irritated from the bleach recover. I was I don't know if you know this, but dyeing your hair is painful.
Yeah. And also I'd imagine bleaching is really, I mean, you hear all those things, it's obviously really harsh on your scalp, like you said.
Right.
It's chemicals.
It's not good for you, but it's if you bleach and then have to tone, that's 2 very harsh chemical processes happening back to back. It's you have to take a minute. Anyway.
I will say, I think I can't get over how healthy it looks.
Thank you.
Because you have very dark hair.
Yeah. Well, I haven't posted a photo. So I've been trying to, and maybe the forgivers have some thoughts of the best way to unveil it.
Yeah.
Part of me wants to wait until my 30th birthday and post
yeah, that's what Jake thought you were gonna do.
A black and white. I want it to be a black and white sort of portrait, and the caption just says 30.
Are you wearing a turtleneck or something, or it's very dignified, or?
No, I want to see it more maybe even just collarbones up, shirtless.
Oh,
like
love it.
Justin, like Sweetest Kiss style, you know, like
Yeah.
I'm naked below here, but I'm also Christian.
Yeah.
I'm not
And
sure
blonde.
exactly, but I love how blonde hair looks in black and white, just because like
You love a
it's
high
I'm
contrast.
you're right. I'm so used for that part of the picture being black, and it's like now it's white. You know, that's
Yeah.
huge.
So has Patrick been like your stylist? Like, is he the one who's like, or are you like doing it yourself?
He is my stylist, and that he like applied it to my hair for me. But I would say I have, you know, been the like planner for all of it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I feel like you like bleaching your hair during quarantine, I feel like has to be like a self-driven prophecy instead of
Yeah.
like someone else wanting it for you because like
Wait, I need to scroll back real quick. So, friend of the pod, Jake, um, thought that I was waiting till I turned 30 to post a photo.
yeah, because I was like we were together when I like texted you, being like a little birdie, being friend of the pod. Ian told me that you were dyeing your hair. You're actually doing it.
Yeah.
And then like you sent the photo, and I was like, said something to Jake, and I was like, I don't know why. I'm like wondering when he's gonna like post like progress photos, or if there's gonna be like a little tease, kind of like, are you ready for it? Or like anyone would tease like a new single. And Jake was like, oh, I bet he's got it all planned out. Like on his 30th birthday, he probably like knows the pose, like knows what he's gonna wear. I guess you know what you're not wearing. Oh,
Wow. Honestly, friend of the pod, Jake, knows me better than I realize.
I know he quoted you.
I know, and text you.
Mm-hmm.
Huge, if true.
Huge if true.
Um, wow.
Will you give us updates tomorrow when you go to the grocery store if the ladies at Giant treat you differently?
Yeah, honestly, I've been expecting more people in Patrick's like neighborhood to
To
react.
be like, oh my god!
Yeah, just to react. But like a man I met the other weekend when I was still brunette saw me again today, and like there was no like confusion. I don't know.
To be fair, like a man, like a straight man.
I know my straight boss saw me in a meeting as blonde today for the first time and didn't react at all.
And you're like, hello, ring a ding ding.
It's
Maybe
like,
that's better, so then you can really like show it off and make them like notice.
it's either that or someone already told him, so he was like expecting it. You know, I'm not sure. I don't know. You never know how much like your superiors are gossiping.
Yeah. Or they're like,
No.
hey, just a heads up, like, you know, Jackson is in the process of dying his hair, so don't comment on it yet. I don't know if like you've given that much to your coworkers.
I feel like it'd be more like Jackson dyed his hair. I did a quick Google. Turns out if a gay man bleaches his hair, that means he's in crisis. So we should have HR talk to him. I honestly, well, I mean, we all are in crisis, and so we all should be blonde.
I know. I think it's weird how few people are actually dyeing their hair blonde during this time, but it's probably because the salons are closed.
Oh yeah.
And like, you know, just like that fear.
Honestly, if I had longer hair, it's like it's too much work dyeing your own hair.
That's why it usually looks like shit when people do it themselves. No offense, forgivers who dye their own hair. I know there's exceptions, but like usually if it's longer, it doesn't look as good. And if you do it yourself, like it's simple math. It makes sense.
It's so hard to get full coverage.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, if you can do it yourself and make it look good, like, God bless.
I truly I'm excited for this reveal because I am literally just staring at like your hairline because it looks so healthy. Like I don't know why I expected it to be like it just like looks conditioned. It doesn't look like you just put it through hell.
Yeah, thank you. I've been shampooing less and conditioning a lot more.
Have you been doing like any leave-ins or?
I didn't because I ordered like the It's a 10 hair mask. Like, according to my quick Googs, is like a pretty well regarded mask for helping your hair after a process like this. But my Sally Beauty order, I guess it was sold out, so they just canceled it from my order. And I was like, well, I tried, but I have the conditioner, like the
purple one
conditioner, yeah, from the brand Not Your Mother or Not Your Mother's, and it's called Blonde Moment.
And it's like, is it in that blue bottle?
It's purple. Bottle's purple,
I love that.
too.
That's a fun way to like break up essentially like week 5 or 6 to like change. Like I like that because I'm getting tired of everything.
Yeah, I mean honestly, go blonde now that you're wedding. Oh, cat's out of the bag. Well,
yeah, that's fine.
So your big update. So I went blonde, and your big update is
that we decided to push our wedding a year, which like last week we were just like both like we need like a day to ourselves to like go blonde. I think we both were just feeling down, and I didn't really realize how much that like affected me until like this week, because I just didn't realize like that was even like the small little check-ins of like wedding, even though most of it's like planned. Right. But you know, when there's like a project, there's always things to kind of like think on. And so now I'm just like, I feel like I'm so tired of everything. Like your blonde hair was like me making bagels, Spanish tortilla, banana bread, cookies.
Yeah.
But I'm so tired of trying things, like cooking things. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, it doesn't bring me joy. Like,
yeah.
And that's kind of bumming me out. So it's like, I feel like really nervous. Like, I feel like I need a new thing. I need a new thing so I don't go crazy.
Yeah.
And so forgivers, if you have any advice, like, because I do, like, I know we chatted about this before, but it does feel like this point was kind of like a fun point. Then it changes something like your hair, and you're able to like focus on that now instead of just like it's changing your routine a bit, which is fun.
Yeah. Well, I think, honestly, I feel like a lot of this comes down to, like, that's a huge change, moving at your wedding. Also, like, it's not like you're not planning like a very simple ceremony. You're planning
a weekend.
Right, like a whole experience. And I don't mean that to make it sound like you're having like this like goop retreat. Like, you know, it's still like a sensible event.
Yeah.
But it's like very specific. So it's, I don't know, it's like forward more to something like more than a wedding in a way. Because it was like a whole like weekend retreat. It was also your bachelorette.
Yeah.
Like there was just so much built into it, which made it so exciting.
Right.
Right. It just feels like a loss. And I think like we've all been starting to mourn the summer. I have.
Yeah.
Because I'm just a summer girl. As you know.
I wear my flip-flops and when I let my head down.
I do live the whole year for the summer. And
yeah. Why do you think you spend so much time working out?
Yeah. But also just like mentally, I don't know. It's just like I love the summer so much, and like that short period of time brings me so much joy. And thinking about like not having it, and also being not in New York for it. Like so many people hate summer in the city, and I love summer in the city.
Yeah.
I love feeling disgusting. I love how like the heat feels rising when it gets a little bit cooler outside, and then it's like rising off the sidewalk.
And the smell of it.
Yes, I love the smell of like the tar and the asphalt, like kind of like melting again.
Yeah.
I know, like there's obviously the smell of like pee that's gross, but like something.
Yeah, like there are gross things, but it's like, yes, let us romanticize and more in this like idealized version of summer.
Yes. But I've started more in something because it's just like, okay, like because your wedding was like Labor Day.
Right. So, and it was like the end of.
Right. That's the end of summer. So
right. So it was feeling like, okay, like we'll still be able to do this. And honestly, like things will probably be like, we'll have a new normal by then. I think it'll be like a different thing as it is now, but it's still like not going to be a normal time, you know? And even like you having like a margarita, just things that I feel like I'm like losing my mind. I feel like I'm having a hard time holding things in my brain and concentrating. But like just seeing you with the margarita, like one thing I was like getting joy of like trying new wines that I haven't tried. And now I'm just like, the last time I drank was Cinco de Mayo. And then today Sam and I borrowed bikes from Jake and Laura and went to pick up something for the mask project that I'm working on in Greenpoint. And we stopped at Jake's and I was like, you know what? He had just gotten wine delivered. I was like, that sounds great. And then we got it today and I had like a glass and I was like, this isn't bringing me joy.
Yeah.
Like it just is like, I feel like drinking in warm weather, you want to be outside and you want to be with your friends. Whereas like drinking in winter, it can be like a solitary event. But like the things that like bring me joy. This is like such a downer episode, but it's like.
Oh, I think it's like. I just feel I love our quarantine episodes. I don't listen to them, but the fact that they exist.
It'll be a cool time capsule.
Yeah, of just like. But also like, sorry, but this is like so. Just bizarre, to like. Be alive right now, but like I live with my boyfriend's. Like I'm doing something I never conceived of doing.
No, not at all. Like you are living with your boyfriend's family in another state. And
Right.
It's not like it's like Jersey where it's like, oh, you guys would go there on the weekends to see them.
Right.
No.
Right. It's like far enough away that you only see each other like every couple of months and.
Or like a holiday.
Right.
Or a big occasion.
And it's just like, sorry, it's like high school in a way. In so many ways, honestly. It's like, okay, I'm living with someone's parents and like I can't go anywhere, so like what you end up doing is like driving around for fun. Like we go grocery shopping sometimes on Friday nights, and like sometimes we'll just be like, oh, we're not ready to be back at the house yet, so after we get groceries we'll just like drive around, like listen to the radio, which is like, the most fun thing you can do, kind of in a way.
I love the radio. Yeah, in a car. Hello.
Yeah. But also it's just like, oh, like it reminds you that like being like that sort of in between like age around like between like 17 and 21, I guess. Especially like when you're not at college. It's like when you're like back home. So right, it's like that back home after your first year of college is like, but like bizarre.
Yeah. I feel like this is making me want to watch Nancy Meyer's daughter's film Back Home.
Home Again. I've never seen it.
Home Again.
Have you seen it?
No, maybe we should watch it for next week.
Oh, I love that.
Like a little project. Have you guys Back Home? Because I cannot keep things in my brain. I have to. Have you guys listened to New JoJo at all?
No.
Have you though? Because I've only been telling you for weeks to listen to The Man or watch the video because it's sexy.
No, I haven't touched it at all.
What about Joan of Arc on the Dance Floor by Aaliyah JoJo?
I also haven't listened to that. I haven't listened to any. I haven't. So I feel like the only time I listen to music is if I'm in the car here, because most of my workouts I've been like doing Peloton classes, so I'm not putting on a playlist for those. And then like I don't listen to music when I work usually.
Is it too distracting? Because you used to listen to podcasts, right?
Yeah, I've just honestly like I haven't been able to listen to anything while I work here. And that was like, those are the periods where I was like interacting with things more. And I don't know, it's just like my relationship with most things is just.
Do you feel like you've had, the moments like it's all like, oh my God, like I obviously like I'm using this voice, but it's actually true. Like we're all having this like reckoning of like things we can release or things that like, oh wait, that like isn't as important to me. Have you had any of those moments or like realize what is really important to you?
Kind of. It's a really good question. I feel like I don't have a profound answer for it. I guess in terms of like how I spend my time, this is very trite, but like physical activity is so important to me.
Yeah.
Way that like I guess I like kind of take for granted in the city because most days even if I like don't go to the gym, I'm just like naturally active.
Yeah, like walking and hopping on a bike.
Right, like walking to go shopping or even like walking to the train to walk to somewhere else. Like I'm just like in motion so much more. And so here, I think that's like part of like the 10,000 steps obsession that's happened to me. And like I know you have your like 10,000 steps for 5 miles on the bike. But it's like because I started looking at my phone and realizing I wasn't moving around as much.
Yeah.
And so then it's like, okay, I need to start. And then it's like, oh, I just have to have like this. And it's been much more important to me than like catching up, like staying up to date on TV shows or like consuming of like culture, I guess. I'm doing way less of that here.
I'm having a hard time consuming new culture. Like I finally, I'm sure I mentioned this on the pod, ordered like the eBay of all 7 seasons of Buffy and all 5 seasons of Angel. And so Sam and I have been watching that, and there's something like more comforting in doing that. Like Insecure came back, that's one of my favorite shows. And like I've been watching like random movies, but new things that are like part of like a larger cultural conversation, I've had a hard time engaging with. And I don't know if it's just like, which is weird because I like usually love that, you know?
Yeah.
But like I found myself laying on my kitchen floor a lot, like while I'm like I'll go into it being like, I'm gonna bake something because that's what I've been doing to like bring me joy. And then I'm like get there and I get everything out and I'm just like, like it feels like a chore now. And I like literally had this moment where I was like, as soon as we're able to do this, like I am getting my ass to Sephora and I am going to get contoured.
You need to. Oh my
because
God.
It's like I've always wanted to do it, and then I'm always like, oh, I'm gonna like learn how to do it, but it's like I don't have any of these supplies, and I actually need someone to like walk me through it and see it, and then be like, oh, okay, like yeah. So for me, that's what I need to do.
Yeah.
I need to get contoured.
No, honestly, that makes sense because it's also like a physical change.
Yeah, it's just like something needs to change. Like I keep looking at my hair and this thing, like I hate this length my hair is. It's like it needs to be longer, it needs to be shorter. This in between length.
Honestly, I like this. I think this length like hits your face really nicely.
Oh, thanks.
It's like a Courtney Cox length in a way, like an early season.
Yeah, it is just like it's like a little longer than I like, and then not long enough. You know, but I get it. It's like there's just like a transformation aspect of like I was even at this moment where I'm like, am I gonna start wearing heels? Like
just you stomping back and forth in your apartment in Louboutins. It's like when friend of the not the pod, but friend of us, Courtney Bush,
had
asked for only Louboutins for Christmas.
And she got them.
And she got them, and she still has them.
Yeah, you don't really get rid of those.
Honestly, like a sack dress with a Louboutin still is the most glamorous you could look.
Ever.
Yeah, I mean, like, I can picture myself in it, and I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, and with your blonde hair, it's like, are you Jamie Lee Curtis?
Me and my blonde hair with a sack dress, like, watch out. Honestly, somewhere in the city could have been me in a sack dress. That would have been fun.
Next summer.
Next summer. That's for my 30s. So, Rozz, you were saying that consuming older culture has been more comforting to you, and what something we're going to talk about today. This is the hard pivot, but
it actually isn't, because it like is kind of what we're saying of these comfort things and like feeling like we're in high school again, and also even does kind of relate to our book club book this month. I think it actually is all full circle, baby.
So we want to talk about JoJo, who you mentioned earlier, who has a new album out, and new videos. Is sort of doing like an album release, and JoJo is famously one of the signees to the Blackground Records record label, which is known as the record label that Aaliyah's uncle formed after like she wasn't able to get signed elsewhere.
Yeah.
And so I guess something that like I've always been obsessed with is Aaliyah. To an extent that like I feel like I don't discuss as much on the pod as I do like an obsession with Britney, but like I was very into Aaliyah, and I just like was obsessed. Like I was very obsessed with her music and the production of it, which I also is like I guess Timbaland's production, because she, Missy, and Timbaland like all became famous at the same time and like together, and I was also love Missy Elliott, and so like there's just something about them that like
the trio
really captured. And Missy and Timbaland are also both from Virginia, even though they're from Virginia Beach, was like a very separate world of Virginia, but it's still
Virginia.
Still Virginia. So is Pharrell, a lot of famous Virginians. But I don't know, I just felt like a kinship because of that. And something that I am constantly bothered by is that Aaliyah's music is not available for streaming except for her album AJ Nothing But a Number, which is like not her most important album.
No.
In terms of like the level of like the number of hits on it, and also like the level of influence it's had on culture. Like 1 in a Million and onward is when Aaliyah really comes into her own stardom. And she's referenced so much, and no one's actually able to stream her discography.
There's a whole generation of people who like haven't, well, and also like to back up a little bit, like something that we've joked early on, like before we did our podcast, was like, where the F is JoJo? And I feel like a lot of people actually just kind of assumed like she's out of the spotlight. Like I'm sure there are people listening who are like, oh yeah, well didn't she just like, probably wouldn't have a normal life, start in that, what was the mermaid fins? Sparkles?
Aquamarine. Right?
Aquamarine! It is for sure Aquamarine. I love that movie.
And RV.
And RV with Robin Williams.
Yeah.
So we've always been like, oh, where the F is JoJo? But I think there's actually people who like don't understand that it wasn't a choice that she's not here. And obviously like Aaliyah's music not being accessible, she's like very famously deceased.
I hope when I die I'm very famously deceased. Rest in peace, obviously, to Aaliyah.
I think about whenever I have heavy baggage, I think about Aaliyah. Like, can I get on a plane?
Oh, of course, yeah.
That like stuck with me. It was like they weighed the plane down.
It also made me never want to fly private.
Yes, but she's also someone who like the reason it's like not obviously like it's weird because I'm like she's dead and being like it's not her choice that her music isn't out. It's like no, or her uncle is
controls the masters,
right, and also like is making like has made JoJo's life hell.
Right, because of the fact that he owns these masters and has no distribution deal currently for the music. So on iTunes, you can stream it on Spotify, iTunes, Tidal, like no service at all. It's not just like the Feeling Myself video that's still only available in Tidal even like years later, which is so annoying. So annoying. It's like, okay, at this point, can you just put it on YouTube?
Yeah.
Anyway, if anybody has the Feeling Myself video and wants to send it along,
Email us at
gmail.com, because I would love to have a good quality of that video. Anyway, you can't get it anywhere, and you can't even buy it physically, like as a new copy. You'd have to buy someone else's existing copy, which is just insane.
And also, like, outside of like the distribution, like for JoJo specifically, like she's been trying to get out of her contract for how many years now?
I mean, she became
when did she?
When was?
We were like in 7th grade, right? When Leave came out.
Yeah, so that would be 2004.
So we were like in 8th grade.
Yeah. Which means that 2004, so 15 years. But she's been back, and she was also a child when she was in her teens when Leave came out. So she's literally been fighting, like, because she had a second album on Blackground, and then that was her last album for at least half a decade.
Yeah, and I guess it was technically a 7-year legal battle, which also, how expensive is that?
Oh, I know.
So expensive, and it just, when we were like looking into this more, like Taylor Swift has like been a vocal, like behind the scenes supporter, just like Taylor has done with like Kesha and her Dr. Luke stuff. And it's just wild how hard it is for artists to have any agency over their music. So it's like we can get annoyed with Taylor Swift and being on her high horse and like doing whatever, but it's actually like there have to be a million more stories, unfortunately, like JoJo. It's just people who didn't have 2 hits like JoJo or star in 2 movies like JoJo, like,
right.
And it's so disheartening that it's not like, oh, if you're, you'll only make it if you're super talented or whatever. She had all those things. And I am still amazed that she was able to, like, knowing what we know now, like, sustain a 7-year lawsuit and come out with music, re-record her originals, just like what Taylor's going to do.
Right. Except that JoJo's even in a situation where, like, the originals aren't even available to, like, keep her popularity alive. So, like,
that's
up until she re-recorded and re-released, like, the new masters of her songs, like, you couldn't stream Leave Get Out.
That is so crazy.
I mean, it's crazy, but it's also, so when you think about someone like Aaliyah, who has such a huge cultural footprint.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
literally right now with, oh my God, sorry. Huma is so big. When she jumps, you feel the floor, and she just jumped off the bed behind me, and I literally was like, oh my God, something just fell. But like all the girls with new music right now, Aaliyah stuff. Stuff. But I just mean like your point of being like, we can't even go back and be like, oh, like the sick inspired or this is just classic.
Well, it's not like people aren't saying that they're inspired by Aaliyah. They like reference her. But then I learned so much about older music, like when I was a teen, especially. Like I wanted to learn about, what came before me, and you learn about it from like who other younger artists reference as their influences. Mm-hmm. That honestly is, even if like you sort of laugh at them when they're saying it, like, oh, I'm like a huge Prince fan, or like, oh, I'm a huge Madonna fan or whatever. Like people comparing themselves to those people, like when you're younger and you like this younger star who then tells you about that person, like you go listen to that person.
Totally.
or like it gets featured in movies and like other people are it is referenced it back into culture in a new way. Like that's how it stays alive. And so like for Aaliyah's impact to stay alive, like you can be multiple generations out and still be like cited as like who you're influencing, but only if like people are still referring back to you. It's like the same way scientific journals work.
Yeah.
Like it only matters as much as like people cite you. And Aaliyah's being cited, but then no one can go back and like check the citation. It's like if you're on Wikipedia and it's like they have a little number link and then the link went nowhere. It just like means that like, oh, Aaliyah's music sounds like this just becomes like, oh, Kalani's music sounds like this. And then you don't jump back from it.
There's also this thing about like, well, we haven't on, it's hard because Jackson and I were talking about this before. So like we could be repeating ourselves in here. The person who owns her masters is her uncle, who owns the label that both she and JoJo were on.
Right.
And the thing that's very unclear is, and truly feels nonsensical, why it's not on streaming. Yeah. It's not like there's not a want or a desire. And so what happens when this guy dies?
Then like it's in his will, you know, it's like,
you know, if it's in his will, this is the thing infuriating. Like, I know like the legal system is not just like, it's not like, oh man, but it seems so wild for something like JoJo's 3-album contract for a very young girl that she took her 7 years to get out of.
Right.
Right? Like, Aaliyah's music can't get out. One person holds all the control.
Right.
Like, Kesha can't get out of her Dr. Luke thing and has to go broke trying to get out of the contract. And it's just so wild that, like, I just think it's so mind-boggling that these women's legacies are controlled by men who, for no good reason, are doing what they're doing. You know? But, like, Flynn can get pardoned for being an actual traitor to his country.
I mean, so we are both currently in the process of reading our next We True Hollywood Storybook Club book, which is Full Service by Scotty Bowers. And so something that we've been sort of texting about and into, but that is just like such an accidental but important subtext to this book.
Yeah.
Is like the lack of consideration history gives to women.
Yes.
And you always talk about like how like history is written by like the winners or
right.
You know, however you want to phrase it. That. But it's like this is a book that's written by a queer man, like doesn't identify as gay, but like lived a queer lifestyle, if nothing else. And he so like is in the queer space, but still like his regard for women is so minuscule.
Yeah.
And so you think about like just like how that like if even like you're not willing to like let like women's stories be considered in your own mind. This is like kind of a leap, but I'm just going for it. But like
I'm here with you. I'm following.
If you're like so that like that restrictive about just the ideas of women, like if you jump forward and it's like, okay, then how like restrictive do you feel you can be over like the legacies of women or like the physical or like intellectual property of, you know, like something that has like not just the value of like an intrinsic value, but like a market value.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so you have like Aaliyah's uncle that's holding the rights to all of this music.
And it was also at least outlived Aaliyah. Like Scotty Bowers outlived all of these women he's mentioned in his book.
Oh yeah. Anyway, the book is fascinating, and we'll definitely be talking more about that.
About this point, yeah, that we're making, like that. I think I really don't feel like it's that much of a leap because it's like, and one of the things we'll get into with Scotty Bowers' books is that like the consideration and the detail he'll go into to like these men and their like sexual escapades, and then how these women are just like tossed aside, some of which, you know, might be the only queer knowledge that's been like mentioned of these people, or like could possibly expand more in a meaningful or an interesting way, is so like devalued. And that's what it feels like with this like the Aaliyah thing with JoJo. It's like people want to hear this music, and like re-recording your masters is cool or whatever, but I don't know, like Aaliyah can't do that. One, two, it's not the same.
Right.
It's just fully not the same. Like JoJo's vocals at like what, 10, 12? Like she has an amazing voice. I would recommend listening to Joanna. It's a letter to, essentially a song that's like a letter to herself. That's not off this EP album, but it's like really fascinating in the context of like what we're discussing, like things that are beyond her control, but she's like blaming herself. But I just feel like it's all like so related that like these men are holding the value of these women's stories for actually like zero. It's totally nonsensical. And like you'll never be able to recreate or relive those moments, and we can't go back there like oratorily. Is that the word? Like via audio.
Oh yeah.
Which they capture time. They are like historical documents, and we can't access them. Someone just like a fat king on his like pillow, not letting us peasants get access to these beautiful songs and the history and legacies of women, especially like Aaliyah, who's just thought of as the young teenage bride to rapist and gross all-around person R. Kelly.
I guess that's the other thing.
She's marred by his legacy, or her legacy is marred by him.
She is in a way, but I think that's also what's very frustrating is right now the only album of hers that is streamable is AJ Nothing Number, which was written when she was married as a teen bride to R. Kelly. And that's just really, like, that's upsetting because, like, you know, that's not the voice of Aaliyah that you want to be, like, the known voice of Aaliyah.
Like, but also, don't you think that that's like one of like in just the larger, like it's gross and it's just disturbing that that's how we like remember her, like the whole AJ Nothing But a Number R. Kelly, but also that like the music she's only like that's only accessible to people right now is the one that like just deals with like her sexuality and her relationship and not actually like her musical talent. Like it had to be that album.
Right, and that album doesn't have the same production that the later albums do because she like develops a sound that's so distinctly her vocal styling, but the full package, like you need to start at one, or you need to have one in a million.
To understand, like she has the sound.
But it's like I feel like we let, at least in some ways, like other pop stars have.
Hold on, Jackson. You just.
Yeah, we're
a little. And you're saying like the need to develop, that like, and then you came back and saying like that other pop stars were able to develop.
Oh, I mean, it's just like that. Like being able to tell the narrative is so important. Like if you go back, even like I wasn't alive for a lot of Madonna's oeuvre, and then I wasn't like, you know, culturally aware a lot.
Right, we're babies.
Like until like the Ray of Light album Like I remember that song, and I remember the Frozen video very distinctly from like very early of like early watching MTV, but like before I was even like addicted to TRL, like a year before that. And so, but then like, okay, so you learn that song and then you go back.
Right. You're
build out like the era and like how someone's voice progressed. And like right now you can't do that with Aaliyah as a young listener. And I think that is doing such a huge disservice, especially to teen girls also. Like,
well, she's someone else. It's so reductive. She's someone else beyond her relationship to R. Kelly and her sound, and that she has like what she's given to young pop stars today is not able to like, it's like more than like what we're getting, like just this reference point. It's like hope in a way of like, I don't know, or it's like inspiration of being like, you can start here and then you can like develop on your own and like people will love you. And in 20 plus years, you'll be like the touchstone for that created their sound, you know? It's frustrating.
Yeah. And I think also JoJo hasn't been able to have that development as an artist. Like she's a child prodigy turned like teen star, and to not be able to say like, okay, this was me at 14 when my first single, like I had my first hit single, and then like here's me at 21 after having been famous since 14. Like that's a very specific story to tell, and like seeing how different people react to it teaches you a lot. So like if you were a teen, to be able to like look at JoJo's progression through her music and hear it, and look at Aaliyah's and hear that, look, you know, like go to Britney Spears and listen to that, like, you know, I don't know, like any of these women who have gone through being famous, like as a teenager, I don't know, it's just like to not have Aaliyah included in that, like being able to have a narrative, like just through her work and not about her personal life or like her untimely death, but just like an auditory history is not available to people, and that's insane.
Right.
And it's like, how many people have we already lost, you know, because of the same reason? Like we're watching someone's legacy slowly disappear, and like she still gets referenced obviously heavily right now, but that's because like there are enough people in sort of like culture who remember her, pass it on. And like, I mean, you see Drake, who like in some cases like problematically has like tried to entwine his career with like the memory of Aaliyah, but him doing that and being arguably like the most successful musician of the last 10 years is like huge for her legacy right now. But like, you know, like those like, teens right now need to hear Drake. Like Drake's getting old for teens, honestly. You know, it's just like he's progressing into, but he's not fading away. But like, he's the link back to Aaliyah for some people.
We're aging out of those links.
Right, like people who listen to Drake aren't able to say like, oh, I listened to Drake and then I got to go learn about Aaliyah, and now Aaliyah's influencing me. Like, it's not able to, like at some point you're not able to bridge those gaps.
Yeah, and it's important to be able to bridge those gaps, and like the importance of like knowing where things came from and giving them meaning and allowing there to be like this depth of knowledge, as though we're a scientific paper of like knowing where the origin of things is, like, I don't know, helps create this like beautiful like loop and cycle that like allows other things to grow and flourish, and like allows people to pull from and be inspired by and like create new sounds and create new whatever. And again, the fact that it's like the first person we think about is like Drake touching back or like entwining himself with Aaliyah. It's like, how many like young girls right now would like grow and like learn so much by being our boys. Able to access her music.
Well, and I think, and this also goes along with the reading of Scotty Bowers, but you start thinking like, okay, like Aaliyah's legacy in music could be lost.
Right, or it's a snapshot in R. Kelly's book.
Right, like it can be like
it's lost, which is lost, yeah.
Like and so it's just like, okay, so you're watching history get written, and like something that I think is like a very frustrating thing to hear, but like something that I've heard from like family members is like, oh, they just like weren't gay people like in my day, like we just didn't have those. and so it's just like, oh, this idea like this is like just developed since like Stonewall happened.
Yeah.
Well, right, it's like the historical erasure, but it's like, I guess like to hear Scotty Bowers' book, and this is like a man who is no longer with us, but like he's in his 20s, and it's like 1946, and he's like 23 years old maybe, and like detailing like the lives of all of these queer men and women, and like discussing like the Los Angeles scene and like the gay slang, like the sort of like social mores, like all of this, like these cultural bits, and you just spend so much of your life like basically being told that like this cultural history doesn't exist for you, or like like this is a brand new thing, and that's like obviously not something that's exclusive to gay people. That's like, especially in America, if you're like of any minority group, it's like seeing yourself in any sort of history book or retelling, and like even in like tellings of your history. Like they'll cast someone who's not even like a part of your group, like not a part of your race, or like not from your actual country. They're like they might be of like ethnicity, but not of the same nationality. Just like all of these like different levels of like being seen or represented, but like just in history, and you're like constantly being told that like what you're asking for is too new or too much. And it's like, okay, well, it's been too new and too much every single year of every single year.
For 80 years.
It's like none of this is brand new, and it's like you're being obviously just like lied to on purpose. But that's also what's happening with someone like Aaliyah's work.
Yeah, but I think also what you're saying is like a more clear and obvious way of saying like when there's this erasure of the history, it makes it feel like your story isn't worth telling, or like the reason why we get so frustrated by saying that like Aaliyah, all we do is associate her with the way she died and the older men that she's associated with, and like in doing so that she's only remembered that way, that's her only value, which we know that isn't the case. And so like hearing about like gay and queer culture back then, and like when you're a kid and you're feeling like weird or othered or queer, and then like knowing that like what you were saying about progress and stuff, and people are like, oh, you're wanting too much, and it's like, oh no, like this has been happening forever,
right?
And like I have a history and I'm not alone. And like for Aaliyah and her music, it's the same way of like young people who might have had similar life experiences or just generally inspired by her or her voice, or feel like they sound like her and are being told like there's no value in that, or there's not whatever. But then it's like, yeah, that's the trouble about like cutting these links off, is that we're inherently devaluing what it is, or saying that like these stories don't matter, these people don't matter, these experiences don't matter. And they do, because they're just meant to keep people complacent. And in like both cases, the Scotty Bowers story is like shining a light on this like really interesting like queer community that we don't know about, or we isn't like as mainstream. We're like, oh, gay men, no. In World War II, no. And it's like,
yeah. Well, and I do think it's fascinating all of that sort of like the like this of like platonic ideals and like the purpose of love and like the like how you're able to reproduce or like what your drives are. And like one of the like in Plato's like philosophy, one of like the greatest drives you can have is to basically reproduce yourself through great works. It's like basically like your thoughts are your children. It's like a very blunt way to think about it. And so it's like, okay, like you can sort of like talk about family lines, I think pretty naturally, like this is your children and like this person wouldn't exist if like your great grandmother hadn't had you.
Yes.
But
I like
like
where this is heading.
take that idea of like your ideas or your work being like your children and your legacy and like what like the roots that grow from your seed. Like all these breakages are happening and no one's like acknowledging them. It's like you're saying, like if your great grandmother hadn't had your grandmother, hadn't had your mom, hadn't had you, like you wouldn't exist. It's like, what are all the things that don't exist because we let these things, like these pieces have just disappeared.
Yeah.
And that's anyway.
Or the things we haven't let grow because, you know, we're so ignorant.
Yeah, so I feel like I'm getting like too philosophical, but it really is just
but I really don't think you are. I mean, you are, but I don't think it's like a wild. There's a reason why we wanted to talk about them in conjunction to as we're reading this book.
Yeah, right. But ultimately, it's just like Aaliyah's music and JoJo's music and Toni Braxton's Libra album, which is an album like no one ever mentions or talks about of her work because it's what? On Blackground Records and not available anywhere. And that's Toni Braxton, someone who's had like success before and after.
Yeah, and is still incredibly famous and well respected in her industry. And she can't like.
Yeah.
Maybe we need one of that like a Martin Scarelli like person to buy the. You know what I mean? Like it's a Wu-Tang album. Like there's only one copy of it.
Yeah.
We need to free the work.
Well, I mean, I'd be happy for Aaliyah's family to make money off of her work.
But it's like I think that for her case specifically, it's like beyond logic, obviously, about like why her music isn't available to stream.
Right, and there've been several attempts at the Martin Scarelli thing, like Reservoir Media tried to buy like at least 15% of Blackground. And part of it was to like get this catalog on streaming, and like the crown jewel of the catalog is Aaliyah's music, like the most assumed market value, like that it would be lucrative to have the streaming rights to these songs.
Do you think there was a secret fire and all the masters were destroyed, and that's why we've never heard any of these?
I mean, I think there'd still be like there was a moment when a company like illegally put her music on streaming in like 2012 for a brief period of time, and so like and people then had to dig into it, but like the quality was at least high enough to be
perceived as the master.
Yeah, or I mean, but that's happened.
Like that, it would come from like their people.
There's a really interesting article. This is the last thing I'll say. In an interview with the band Ween, who's famous for the song "Teenage Dirtbag." I think it's Ween.
Oh yeah, I was like, who?
Oh no, Wheatus. Sorry, Okay, so I'm already messing up this story.
Let's see. Is it Wheatus?
Yeah, I was saying Ween. It's not Ween, it's Wheatus. Anyway, like their masters, they own their own master, but the record label asked them for the masters, and I guess they like thought that they were going to be returned to them, but they never got them back. And then they're in this like very specific format called like ACT2 or something like that. And this format like isn't really supported any longer. And so there's like music from the 90s that like has had to be like transitioned into other forms of masters because this, like you're not going to be able to like find a way to like use the files or play them back. And Sony just like lost the masters. And so they've been trying to, in like the most extreme version of the JoJo or Taylor Swift thing, like re-record their one album that like makes the money, which is the Teenage Dirtbag album, but re-record it like note for note, like trying to match it exactly.
Wow, like and how the exact take went, and probably use like the same old equipment and like
sourcing the equipment, like trying to like figure like reverse engineer noises that were like just like captured in the studio, like weird distortions, and like they've been obsessing and obsessing and obsessing over it because like there's a lot of money, like they live off of like that one song.
Yeah.
Because it is available for streaming, they just like can't get a physical master, and so like you can't remix a song. Like you can, but like not like very high quality remixes where you start with the masters and you know change it from there. So they said there's been multiple opportunities they've missed out on with people wanting to like do samples or remixes or, and so they're trying to have this file basically available so they can like fully.
So you're starting like funny again on your stream. That is wild. I'd watch a documentary on that. I hope they're filming this journey.
There's definitely a great article on it. I don't remember where it is, but
I'm sure we can find it.
But I would
I'm sure it would
recommend. Oh, it's in Rolling Stone.
Oh, easy. We should post it.
It's fascinating. Well, do you have anything else you want to add about JoJo or Leo?
No, I think we like covered it, and I'm getting nervous about like our I know we're not ever concerned about sound quality, but it's just gotten a little like skippy at the end, so I want to kind of wrap up.
Yeah.
I just think that like we have to just be as loud and as frustrated for JoJo and Aaliyah as we get for Taylor Swift, and their histories are really important that we don't lose them. And
you just need to be able to like go to a party and put on like More Than a Woman.
Yes.
You know, like there's just joy missing from the world.
And all because for no reason.
And for not like a reason that's clear on the face. Like Complex wrote an article in 2016. Like they researched pretty heavily. And like reported out on about why the music's not available, and their conclusion is basically we can't understand it. Like the only person that understands it's her uncle.
Again, I'm gonna say that like maybe there was a fire. To me, there's no reason why Aaliyah shouldn't be streaming. I don't get it.
Well, write your senators and your Congress people and let them know.
Get Aaliyah, get Aaliyah streaming. Let us know your thoughts on like what your take would be. Like, I think it's a fire. Why you think we haven't heard Aaliyah's? She's not on streaming. Let us know your thoughts on JoJo. Let us know how you're doing in quarantine. Send us an email at weforgiveyouPodcast@gmail.com. We're on Instagram at we_forgive_you, or you can leave us a voicemail at. I was giving you a chance to do it.
I know, I don't know the number.
1-929-2 2449297. Right. I think that's it.
Eventually. Yeah, that is it. If it's not, enjoy talking to those people.
Yeah.
That's our show. If you're looking for something fun to do in quarantine, one quick recommendation is maybe watch Smash. I've been considering making Patrick watch it for the first time.
You should. It brings you joy.
And it's like, it is kind of similar to Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist, which I also recommend watching in quarantine.
Oof, I've got 2 more episodes left because I know it's coming at the finale, and I emotionally can't get there. I can't take it.
We haven't watched the finale yet, so
because it's going to be a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we love you guys. Forgive us. Stay safe, stay healthy, wear a mask.
Follow stricter social distancing guidelines than your state's governor may be recommending, and certainly stricter than your federal government is recommending.
Correct.
Please. And be nice to service workers and absolutely tip them, and don't yell at anyone.
Mm-hmm. Be kind. Not to quote Ellen. Bye.
Bye.
We forget.